All right, we are back for another edition of Sunday Night Astro Live, a special Super Bowl edition. And for all you non-Super Bowl viewers out there, welcome to the show. I know you could be spending your Sunday night somewhere else, doing something else, watching America's greatest spectacle. What is it? The largest unofficial holiday, theoretically, in the American culture, as it were. And I think some people have been pushing for a Saturday Super Bowl, which I don't necessarily think would be a bad thing, because you could, if you're into that sort of thing, party your ass off on Saturday, and then you get a day of recovery from Sunday, right? That's kind of there's no college football games on Saturday. What are they competing against? Nothing at all. I guess maybe they think they might have more captive viewers, but please, how many more captive viewers would you have to have or need? I mean, come on. It is the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter what day it's on. People are going to watch. I've also heard people suggest that they should make the day after the Super Bowl a holiday, like maybe World President's Day to the Monday after the Super Bowl, or maybe make the Super Bowl Sunday just before President's Day, but then you're really stretching out the whole process. I suppose if the NFL added one more game to its schedule, you could probably get there. Or maybe you push preseason out 1 week, and then you have the ability to have the Super Bowl on one day, and then President's Day on another day, and then you have a natural day of rest and recovery. Hey, if that was me, I would do it. But if it was me, I'd do a lot of things in the world a lot differently. What would you do? I'd love to see. Okay, this is Chataria. I'm going to throw this out there to you guys. If you were king for a day, what would you do? What kind of change would you make in the United States or whatever country you're? Because some of you aren't here. You have your own countries, which is fantastic. Or maybe it would be like one change across the entire world. But if you were king for a day, what would be the one thing that you would change? I'm gonna look at your comments to see what you guys have to say. Jones says no more stupid bowl. There you go. There's one. What did Michael say? Or cancel both. There's a possibility as well. All right. Anybody else? Let's see. I would fire all judges in Congress. Wow. I being a Thomas Massey fan, I'd have to push back a little on that, because I think he's somebody that belongs there. I think you're onto something. Maybe selectively fire the ones you want to fire. We'll tweak that a little bit. Let's see. Robert late. Yes, I am late, but I'm actually kind of early. Gays can't use that voice anymore. I'm gay, just being funny. Okay, we have that's a ruling. No more gay voice. It forces. I kind of like that, actually. It forces people to get beyond their stereotypes. It's easy to fall into the stereotype and the trope. I like that. That's actually an interesting. Restore the House of Representatives to constitutional numbers. About 3,000 congressmen. Steve is thinking big. Mia Alchemy says criminalize lobbying. I think lobbying would be a very, very good thing to limit. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Let's see. You would end fake witchcraft predictions. How would you go about doing that? That'd be an interesting one. Would they have to pass a test, like a witchcraft test? Maybe this is what we have to do. Like, if we have so many astrologers and so many psychics and so many tarot readers and so many rune readers, maybe there should be like a standardized testing for them to be able to apply their craft and to prove how accurate they are. But I don't know. It just seems to me like that would be a real hassle. Vivi says, abolish the Federal Reserve. There we go. That I could get behind that. Fran Santelli. Thomas Massey is great. I'm with you. Let's see. Who else? Come on, you're king for a day. What do you get to do? Anything. Anything. It doesn't have to be political, right? What would you do? Let's see. What do you mean, girlfriend gave voice? That's funny, Stephen. If I were king for a day, I would end vaccines required for school. Now, that is something I think we could all get behind, at least in chat. There you go. I'm for that. Remove all bar cards from the government. Bar cards or barcodes? Interesting. I'm not sure. Let's see. Caddis. Hi, Caddis from New Zealand. End black magic. End black magic. All right, that's a big one. Maybe a little black magic cancels out the white magic and vice versa. What would happen? We'd have a bunch of people practicing white magic. Maybe that would be all right. Tim says, I'll put this one up here. 4-day weekend every month, different week per state to keep traffic down the roads and fight congestion. Tim, I like this idea. I like this idea. Triple coupons. Triple coupons. That's so old school. Rock People's with us. Shelley Meyer, if I were king for a day, I would make a law to be king 364 more days. Shelley's got the right idea. There you go. Sabila Delfo says, I would ban Abrahamic religions. Oh, there you go. Would you force them to convert? How about if you just ban and black them and just memory wipe? That'd probably be the best thing. Just do the memory wipe. And then you could have the Hare Krishnas come around and convert them. Name it the Gulf of America. I think that's happened. The new next, I think that's happening, man. Yeah, I think you're ratifying it. That's what you're doing. Let's see. Who else? Sun Tzu, I'd ban APAC for sure. That would be a noble king for a day gesture. Get the fuck out. Get the fuck out, APAC. I like that one. Bar cards are lawyers. Okay, thank you. Bar cards are lawyers. So you ban the bar cards. The world would be better if we had to all represent ourselves, don't you think? It forces us to learn a lot more about the so-called law. Good one. How about no vaccines at all? Oh, look at that. No vaccines at all. Laurel Jubin. Oh, I put every homeless cat in a loving home. Have you guys seen the cat video? It's a story where these guys are they're prisoners, and they had a problem in this one town where they had all these stray and homeless cats, and they didn't want to euthanize them, so they gave them to these prisoners. And they thought, oh, the prisoners are going to torture these cats. No, actually, the prisoners love these cats. They're in jail, right? They're in a jail, and I think so. In order to keep the cat, right? In order to keep the cat, the prisoner had to display good behavior, right? You got to be a good cat person. You got to be a good occupant of the prison. And so it's improved their behavior tremendously. So it's this interesting match where these cats have no place to go, and those guys, they don't have a place to go either, right? So it's the perfect match. And I think they were even sewing cat clothes and shit. I swear to God, if you haven't seen the video, go find it. It's very touching. It's very, very touching. So this is in response to Laurel's. I would put every homeless cat in a loving home. Well, 200 homeless cats found loving homes in some prison somewhere. Let's see. Rand says I would make all TV and film play Earth Song by Michael Jackson. Okay. Remember, you get one wish. One wish. One king for a day wish. And maybe this will turn the tide. And enough people would hear it and see it and have the same moment at the same time and it could be the ripple wave effect that changes our lives. I'm not going to underestimate it. It could happen. And it's an interesting choice, Rand. Lana Winkler says, birthday cards for everyone in my country, welcoming them to the world. What's the unintended consequences of that? All the people coming to your country. You better be careful. You better be careful. Let's see. Dead Wolf Resistance, French Revolution, worldwide. Oh, there we go. Let's just start hanging people. Let's just start hanging people, and let's just start guillotining people. And when we run out of people that are supposedly the people that we should be guillotining, then let's just find some more. That worked out real well for the French Revolution. Let's do that. I'm not opposed to public executions, by the way. I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to the right people getting their head lopped off in public or lynched in public. I just don't want it to be a thing where all of a sudden it becomes an excuse to take out the competition. Beach Barn's king for a day. Create real transparency in government. We might be on the way to something like that. We might be on the way to something. You may get part of your wish. Let's see. Dianzik. Hi, Dianzik. Sharon Lewis says, if Sharon Lewis was king for a day, everyone has to get 4 20-second hugs each day. 420. Ooh, interesting. 4 20-second hugs. Would you have like a hug-o-meter on your phone? Is there an app? And all of a sudden, as the sun, like, when does the day end? Does it end at sundown or at midnight? And then what would happen? Does your phone start beeping like Logan's Run if you don't have that fourth hug? How does that work? What if people were like lying? What if they said, I didn't get my 4 hugs today, but really what they got is they got like 20 hugs, and that they would have like be welching on other people's hugs. I like the idea. More hugs. Hugs are pretty good. Hugs are good. You know, the right hug at the right time for the right person is magic. Steven says blue light specials. Well, apparently blue light's not as good for you as red light. So maybe the 21st century version of Kmart would be the red light special. But blue light specials, you know what about what always struck me about blue light specials is that when I was in Kmart and they had the attention Kmart shoppers over on aisle number 13, we now have a blue light special. That's right, a blue light special. And we are offering not 1, not 2, but 3 cans of mushroom soup for the price of 1 over there on aisle number 13. You know, like you see this thing, right? You go there and be like very underwhelming. That was just me as a kid going to the blue light special. Very underwhelming. Now, some people might have thought, "Oh my God, I've hit the fucking jackpot with this blue light special." But it was never my experience. They were more hype than happening. Let's see who else. What is black magic? I think the magic is objective. Just make it illegal to give them money. Okay, there we go. Yay, Karen from New Zealand. Guy Dan, say what's happening. Greetings from the future of New Zealand. Man, we got New Zealand Kiwis in the house representing. All right, there you go. Yes, you can be king for a day in New Zealand. Would your wish be for Jacinda Ardern to literally be exposed in public? If I was a New Zealander, that might be my wish for the day. Oh, TMI. All right, rock people, here we go. I checked out Antarctica. See which conspiracy is true. I kind of like that. That's a different kind of wish. Right? That's like a personal wish. Or maybe you could, for your wish for a day, say, today I am going to lead an expedition to Antarctica. And we are going to find out what the hell is going on down there. Mary Mansfield has some very practical, she's got some very practical, I did restrictions on homesteading type activities Front yard gardens and backyard chickens for all. No matter what your freaking HOA says, banning HOAs is you would not get a lot of argument from people about banning HOAs. HOAs became like this inner rung of hell, right? They became kind of a realm in Dante's Inferno over the last 50 years, gaining way too much power. It's not like you have enough to deal with the county and the state. Oh, now you got to deal with the HOAs too. So I think you would be Michael. I think you'd be on top of that one. You'd have a lot of support for that, Mary. Michael wants to ban democracy. There you go. I would ban democracy. Okay. Well, some people would be in favor of that, especially you, because if you were king for a day, you would then run the show. I kind of like that. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Sibylla, you only get one wish. I'm sorry. You only get one wish, and you've already banned Abrahamic religions. I'm afraid Area 51 cannot make it to your king for a day wish. However, if you wanted to swap your Abrahamic religion wish for the Area 51 list, we might be able to do that. I think there's probably about like a 5-minute time limit on your wish. I'll come back, Sibylla, and we can see which wish you would really prefer. Let's see. What else do we have here? Lady Virgo, what's happening? Don't forget to like. I hope you are liking tonight's show, as we find out what all you control freaks would like to do. No, I'm just kidding. Remove all evil from the face of the earth! Exclamation point. Wow. What would that look like? How would we feel? Whew. It'd be like for a while, I think people would have just an enormous opportunity to recover. Right? Like if there was absolutely no evil, like people just relax, high trust society, nobody's trying to fuck anybody over. For a while, you could just recover. I'd be like, wow, this is really great. Man, I feel so good. I haven't had to worry about somebody stealing my shit or fucking with my world or fucking with my woman or fucking with me. Wow, it's really great. And then what would happen after the recovery period, though? Right? I think that's where things would get interesting. Could people live in a world completely devoid of evil? What would that look like? Because a lot of times, it all depends. Bill, it's a very philosophical answer or a very philosophical wish you put out there. Because a lot of people, when they attribute something to another person, they may say, "Oh, that's evil. Person is really, really evil." And really, what that person is doing is perhaps rebelling against circumstances that are oppressive, whether they're intellectual or socioeconomic or religious or spiritual. And then when you have that kind of rebellion in place, a certain type of creativity can come into play, or you kind of that hard angle kind of forces us to do things a little bit differently. So in the subjective realm of evil, it gets a very interesting discussion. I wouldn't mind here's what I would say. I wouldn't mind a vacation from evil, like a good vacation. You just take some time off. Evil, go to another planet for about a year. Let us recover. So by the time we're done recovering, we could deal with this concept on a much more firm, solid, healthy, healed, know it when we see it kind of basis. But then you just ban it. Jones says, quit paying athletes millions and feed to fungry. I know what you're saying. Here's the deal, right? You can feed the hungry, but you have to keep feeding the hungry. And you keep feeding the hungry and feeding the hungry. And then there's a certain point the hungry are fed. And then what do? What's the next stop for the hungry? Let's see. Kate the Gardener. Yes, I banned the HOA. Oh, she saw the story. Sibylla saw the story of the kittens. Let's see. I think RFK got approved. I didn't see the actual approval, but Steve Bannon today was talking about how he has been approved. So that's what I know. Maybe somebody in the chat can fill guidance in. Let's see. I'm just having fun watching Trump have his turn. We're going to talk about Trump, Dave, and we're gonna get into this idea tonight of Trump as the fool. Trump as the fool, and I think it's a very apt archetype for Donald Trump, and we're going to get into why I think it's apt not only for him but for us during this time. Dusty Blue, hey, what's up, Dusty Blue? Let's see who else we have here. Yeah, they did it. They did it for them. Okay, the new next says, if I were king for the day, I would make public record. I would make public record all interstate monetary transactions. Then pick a fight with an Aries. All right, that is going straight for the tip of the spear on that one. I like that. User 13, ban porn. Wow, to ban porn. You'd have a lot of men and young men going through some kind of weird withdrawal. So I think you'd have to have a backup plan for those dudes. Right? You may have to have a backup plan if you're going to ban porn. Maybe ban porn and then provide them with a sex robot for a while, which would be like their methadone or something, or ban porn and then send the Seventh-day Adventists to their house so they could convert while they're in this position of weakness and vulnerability. Let's see who else. Hey, Peter Bayonne in the house. What's going on, Peter? Aren't you glad that Trump don't dislike cats? Never seen Trump with a cat. Never seen Trump with an animal, by the way. That doesn't mean he doesn't like them. Cognitive dissonance. I'd repeal the 19th. There you go. A cat box. Each cell would smell great. Well, I think that's part of the deal, though, man. If you kind of welch on your litter box duties, you may lose a cat privilege. So it forces those cellies to make sure that their litter box. You know what they could also do? They could also have like litter box competitions, like who could build the most badass litter box for their cat. They got a lot of time in their hands. They could have a little competition there. The one who wins gets I don't know, some catnip. Let's see. Scrimshaw Rose, peace on earth and everyone's needs met. Well, that would be ideal now, wouldn't it? JT, one wish. JT has one wish. Everyone truly understands that we were created by a loving God. That would be a wonderful thing. Wow. We are going up the hierarchy of needs here. We're getting close to the top. Let's see, fellow Scorpio moon. We want to know everything. No rock unturned. Scorpio moon. Look out. No wars for the next 25 years. Okay. And after 25 years, it's game on, bitches. Sharpen your blades. No, by that time, maybe you'd learn how to get along. That's not a bad one. We're not comparing. There is no comparing of wishes. No, there's no comparing of wishes. Somebody offered up two wishes, and I was trying to get them to focus on which wish was more important, either banning Abrahamic religions or allowing full access to Area 51. Now, if it were me, if you allowed full access to Area 51, you might find some shit that would unintentionally wind up discrediting the Abrahamic religions. So I'd probably go with that one. If you wanted to have a shot at both, I'd go with the Area 51. How about if liars' pants really caught on fire? I like this, Lady Virgo. Well, sometimes you see somebody down the street and They're doing a flaming jitterbug and trying to get to somebody's garden hose. I like that. Steve says the universe responds to us. It doesn't know what to do with how we feel. I like that. I like that. Let's see who else. What Peter? Yes, King for a day. What else? Have we got any more? Uh, Steven, you can do that. That's fine, but you're only king for a day. Now, somebody already brought this up, and they asked if they could be a king for a day for another 364 days. Let's see. What else? Anybody else? Any other wishes? Any other wishes? Kings for a day. Phil D. Weems, picnic, roller skating, and an outdoor concert. Now that's doable. I like that. A global picnic with roller skating for everyone and an outdoor concert everywhere. That would change. That might change the world. I like that. The blue light specials were always corny, right, Joseph? They were. You get there and go, what the fuck? What's the hype about? Blue light special shit. Jimmy Savile got away with every trust he committed in this world. I'm not sure Jimmy Savile is doing quite well wherever he is. That's just my intuition on the thing. My intuition. Let's see. All right, Stephen, we now have a legitimate wish for Stephen, the Jupiterian king for the day. My wish for the day would be all water reservoirs are always full. Ah, I like that. Why not? Fill them up. Fill them up. Isn't Super Bowl Sunday a high holy day with sports fans like Robert? The only time Super Bowl means anything to Robert is when the San Francisco 49ers are playing in the Super Bowl. That's the only time the Super Bowl means anything to Robert. If there were two teams that were any other teams besides the Kansas City Chiefs or the Philadelphia Eagles, Robert might actually be watching the Super Bowl. But since Robert is sick and tired of the Kansas City Chiefs and all the intervention they've received from everyone from the refs to Taylor Swift to Roger Goodell, and the Philadelphia Eagles to me are the least specious of the two teams, but I'm just not there to watch the Chiefs. I'm done. I'm done. I got Chiefs burnout. So, no, it's not really a national holiday. And even if it was the Detroit Lions and the Buffalo Bills, yeah, probably not. Let somebody do my show. All right. I love this. I love this one. Karen Jaggle, I would make Americans healthy again. Okay. So how do we do that? This is an interesting thought exercise. Do we make Americans healthy again by waving a wand? And then all those pounds come off, right? And all the whatchamacallit, inflammation goes away, right? Now they're healthy again. And then what do? Get them back on their diets? Ooh, no. So I think to clarify, potentiate your wish, you would make all Americans healthy again in a system that supports them in their continued health. There you go. I am here to help you refine your wishes. Truly, I am, because I am a practicing astrologer. And that's kind of what I do, actually. I help you refine your wishes. Let's see. You thought I'd be sure to be watching the Superb Scott. Again, many times. But not honestly, over I think the last non-49er Super Bowl I watched was the New England Patriots and the Rams. That was it. That was like, what, 2019, I think? Might have been the 2019 Super Bowl. That was the last one. That didn't have the 49ers in the Super Bowl. The rest I usually don't watch. Although when I was a kid, I watched every Super Bowl. Let's see. Peter, who's now chiming in with a wish, I would make everything public that's in the Vatican, Russian intel, and CIA archives. Ooh, that's a lot of disclosure right there. Let's see. Sibylla, keep wishing. No, you only get one. See, this is critical. This is critical. You have to really think through it. Limit, what did Orson Welles say? Uh, the lack of limitation is the enemy of art. He should know it because he was given free access to just about everything. Hello, EB. How are you? Good to see you. Let's see. Anybody else? Anybody else? And chemtrails today. Now that is a great wish. King for a day. We got a ding, ding, dinger right there. I love that one. Evil is subjective too. Yes, it certainly is. We wouldn't know what good was after a generation or two. Very interesting. I like that. I like that, rock people. Just for you superb Al freaks, Bill is updating us. Philly 2-touchdown lead. There it is. If I had to pick one team over the other, it'd be the Eagles over the Chiefs. All right, I'm about to transition into the show, unless we have any more wishes. Unless we have, no. So that's so funny. It's got a message from my son, and we're gonna go to a basketball game in Dallas this weekend or this week. We're gonna go watch the Warriors play with Jimmy Buckets, and there's this place called Rodeo Goat, craft burgers and beers, and his roommate said the burgers aren't great for the price. Well, what if he's not paying? But, hold on, let me see. What if the burgers are free? Are free. Then what? All right, that's funny. If he doesn't have to pay for the burger, does it become better? They're not great for the price. All right. But if they're free, does the value of the burger go up? What does Vivi say? Some folks' brains are addicted to adrenaline. He became very nervous. He laughed at that. He thought that was funny. Nah, man. Yeah, that's true. William Powell's can't say it. I think I know what William Powell's is thinking, though. William, I think I know what you're thinking. You don't have to say it, but I think I know what you're thinking. There are other people that are thinking the same thing. And I think I get that. I'm getting where you're coming from, William. Lucifer gets executed. Okay. My selfish wish would be to go back in time and start my life. No, you don't get to do that, Peter. This is not, no, we're talking some kind of policy, right? I should have clarified that. Knowing everything you know now. Well, okay, since we're playing that, this is interesting. We're being interactive tonight. I like this. If you could go, we'll take Peter's thing. We'll roll with it for a little bit here. If you could go back in time and completely change your life, would you do it? Would you change everything? Would you change part of it? Or are you happy with where you are now because it's just how everything has worked out and there may not have been another path for you? Where are you? If you could go back in time and relive your life, would you change all of it, part of it, or none of it? Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got. Let's see. Melissa Stanton. I wouldn't change a thing. Okay, there we go. There we go. Let's see what else we have here. The beauty of core physics. I would change a few things for sure. If you change a few things, those few things might change a lot of things, which means you might change everything. That's a core physics principle, if I'm not mistaken. Here we go. Here we go. I would care more about money and prepping for my future. I don't think you're alone in that one. Kubiki Theater, Bo says no, wouldn't change a thing. Our man Sam, Astro Motion 2025, none of it. Okay. Lemus Bank, part of it. Sue Leonard, none of it. William, it is what it is. Beach Bar, part. I haven't heard anybody say, let me have a fucking total redo on this thing. So, or at least we have partly cloudy with a chance of sunshine. Linda L, part of it. Tammy Lynn would not change a single thing. Peter Bayome, laugh out loud, those chosen people. Peter, you and William were having the same thought. Scott Ian, let's see. No way to know if things would be better or infinitely worse. Scott brings up a good point. Things could be worse if you change a couple of things. It's a great point, Scott. Artistic, leave that out, and it can be hard on us later. Oh, yes. Artists always pay the price. Caddis, what does Caddis say? Wish I'd stayed fitter. Well, there's no time like the present. So you can't go back, but you can move forward with health, a healthy intention. Joan S. chimes in with part. Which part? Tondar, I would join the Merchant Marines or study fermentation agriculture at Michigan State. Those are two very different paths, if I do say so myself. Both, I think, are relatively interesting, though. That would have been, it's like that's a sliding door moment right there. Let's see, user 13, all of it. Scorpios want to change. Change it all for making change. There you go, go all the way. There's our first all of it right there. Sandrine Vox Services wouldn't change a thing, although hell at times I grew so much, learned so much. There you go. There's somebody who is in the present. Nice Light wouldn't change any experiences. Maybe just would want to have drank less. Oh, yes. There's a few moments in my life where I wish I would have drank less. Not in general, but moments. I'm okay with the general overall output. Magic Cat says part. And Mary Mansfield brings up, if you change one thing, you're going to change everything that follows anyway. Each moment builds on the ones that came before it. It's called the butterfly effect. And that would happen for sure. Brandy Herrera, I would change my reactions. This is a very interesting statement because guess what? You still can, right? You can still change your reactions. And what if time is a loop and it's not linear? What if time is a loop? And by changing your reactions now, right, or changing how you react now, you're untangling the reactions from the past. It's an interesting thought. Let's see. Jay comes in and says, I would not change a single thing. I would not have learned proper lessons. There you go, Jay. Fran Santelli, I changed things, I think. I think there are people looking at the lives and, yeah, man, I changed a few things for sure. Lena Winkler, I would say right where I am. Missed a lot of death on the way here. There you go. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Lady Virgo. 2014, bring my son back into his body. Oh, that's the only thing I would change. Yeah. That's a tough one, man. Yeah. Losing loved ones, especially children. Boy, I don't blame you on that. Whatever the cost of the future, I'd probably roll the dice on that too. Right? Yeah, that's a rough one. Let's see. Vaporwave comes in. He's a youngin'. I haven't lived too much, turning 31. Maybe I would have applied myself sooner or tried to do more. It is never too late, Vaporwave. Especially sitting where I'm sitting right now. You can still apply yourself. Oh, let's see. Anybody else here? The beauty core of physics. Yes, I'd have a retirement. Oh, Thea, we're back to the one wish. King for a day. Thea says everyone must kiss a tree. I think that's doable. I think you would have to perhaps pick the right tree, but I think it's very doable. Christy Aphrodite says, I would not change a thing. I love living the life of my dreams and creating it after so-called impossible hardships, death, etc. There you go. That's the spirit. Stephen the Jupiterian, he won't change a thing. What does Denise have to say? Every decision I've made led me to where I am today. I am content. How many people you think can say that they're content in the world? Not many. Content is a neighbor of peaceful, and that's not a bad neighborhood to be in. Let's see. Although some people say, well, once you're content, it's all over. You got to stay hungry. But under the spirit of your reply, I completely understand. Here we go. Cindy Taylor, one chance I wish I had taken on love. I think there may be a few people that have those rewind tapes. Let's see, Lisa Ann White, it's all been wonderfully designed by both the good and the bad. Wouldn't change a thing. There you go. Let's see. Anything else? Tilde, I'm sorry, Tilde, I believe that's how you say it. Tilde Weems, I would have gone into fashion instead of medicine. Maybe someday fashion will become medicine, or medicine will become fashion. It is the 21st century in the age of Aquarius. You never know. Peter says he would definitely change a few crucial elements. Okay. Lynn, I would change the day that changed my life. Otherwise, I'm good with what transpired. So if you're not, if you don't understand what Lynn is referring to, Lynn's husband was a camera operator on a helicopter, and he was right at the beginning of the show Magnum PI. And the helicopter that he was in, there were two of them. It was supposed to be the same helicopter that Magnum flew in on the show. And it was doing a very low pass over the Pacific Ocean in Hawaii. And the pilot of the helicopter, whose experience was okay, had a bit of a checkered flight background, got the helicopter too close to the surf, and a wave hit the helicopter and took the helicopter into the Pacific Ocean. The helicopter survived. The helicopter pilot survived. Lynn's husband, unfortunately, did not. So this is what Lynn is referring to. And I suppose if you could go back in time and change that, how would you do that? Would you be in Hawaii and tell your husband not to get on that helicopter and stay with you? I'm just curious. Not that you couldn't change it, you might be able to, right? At the end of the day, it was a horrible, horrible loss. Horrible loss. And Lynn, due to your perseverance and your persistence, you've actually managed to carve out a pretty wonderful life, and are a real object of fortitude. You are an example of fortitude in that regard, where tragedy can hit a person, and then you can still go on living a meaningful life, even though that loss is huge and very hard to fill. Janice comes in with damn, I'm good. This pizza is the bombs. We're glad, Janice. Road trip, 1981, me neither. I wouldn't change anything. It's my journey. I graduated with honors. Won't have to do it again. There you go. Rocky just wants to throw all the cards in. Give me a new set of cards. Rocky, I don't blame you at times. Akata says, wish I knew astrology and human design earlier. I get that from people, actually. I get that from people. They say, I wish I'd known about astrology earlier. In fact, I talked to a guy today. Said the whole thing, same thing. Anybody else here? I'll throw this up here with Christy. She says, it's never too late to live your purpose. We all have the power to create the life of our dreams. I like that. I like that. Conscious radiance, just partial changes. If I knew what I knew now, I think we all have some of that for sure. But you make those partial changes, they're not so partial anymore. They can have a manifold effect. It could be good. Could be not so good. There's this book by what's his name, Uspensky, right? It's Uspensky was this interesting character who um, was a protege of Gurdjieff. And what's the name of his book? I read this. P.D. Uspensky. If you guys want to read a little time travel life stuff, this book is kind of interesting in that regard. Let's see this book. Let me find it. Published works. Okay, it's right here. It's The Strange Life of Ivan Osikin. And it follows the unsuccessful struggle. I'll show you here. I actually read this book. And did I enjoy the book? Yes, I did. But it's not going to necessarily give you the answers that you're looking for. It may give you answers you're not looking for. So, plot summary: when the protagonist realizes that he can recall having lived his life before, he decides to try to change it. But he discovers that because human choices tend to be mechanical, changing the outcome of one's actions is extremely difficult. He realizes that without help breaking his mechanical behavior, he may be doomed to repeat the same mistakes forever. So this is kind of what happens in the book. And he thinks that he can be free of the negative choices that he had made earlier on, but he realizes he's caught in a loop. And it's this, even with the same self, but a different realization, he can't stop making variations of the same choice. So in that book, there's some question as to whether or not you can actually really do that, right? But what he was really getting at was through the work of Gurdjieff, so Gurdjieff just basically most people are robots, right? That's what most people are absolute robots, and that the very few people are actually really fully awake and actually really fully living. And that unless you broke through your kind of robotic tendencies and traits, there's no way that you can even go back in time to make the choices over again. You'd be doomed because from his perspective, he was still a robot because he hadn't really broken through his own consciousness in his time. You understand what I'm saying? So he couldn't apply difference and change. He was still the same person. Even though he knew the events, he was still bound to repeat them. It's a heady concept, I know. All right, let's get into the show. Thanks for being here. I know you could be spending your night with Andy Reid and Nick Sirianni, but you chose to spend it with me and the rest of us. I thank you for that. All right, before we get into the meat of the show, why don't we do a little True Hemp Science roll call here? And True Hemp Science is your one-stop shop for all of your CBD needs. And that includes CBD, CBDGA, CJA with CBD, and parts of THC in all various sorts of mixtures, forms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, both in the gummy application and also with tinctures. So if you haven't been to truehempscience.com, go there, check it out. Chris he's the wizard of CBD. And if you are interested in finding more about it, you can make an appointment, talk to somebody there. And if you want to go in and get some stuff, type 15MINS, spend $100 more, get the goodie bag, which is a little mini order, a little Whitman sampler inside your own order, and $150 more, get you free shipping, and that's all you need for truehempscience.com. There's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. All right, let's get into the Meat and potatoes. Meat and potatoes of the show. So we're going to talk about Donald Trump tonight. But before we do that, let's check out where the celestials are. Where the celestials are. Okay. There we go. All right. We're going to zoom in. Zoom, 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 zoom. The thing about that book, Ivan Oisikin, the thing about that book that I remember more than anything feeling was this sense of frustration. Like, to me, that was the overwhelming feeling of that book, because every time he would go to change his life, it wouldn't really work, right? It just would not work because he was still making these changes from this robotic position. And I think that the frustration is supposed to be the effect, right? It is supposed to be the effect. So when I read it, I was like getting incredibly frustrated. When's this motherfucker going to make the right choice? I don't want to give you any spoilers, but let's just say there's not a lot of right choosing going on. We keep waiting for, oh yeah, well then this happens, and he winds up experiencing this different reality, or these different sets of outcomes, and it just doesn't happen. And I think that the frustration is really built into, it's part of the narrative. It's part of the, and you keep reading, and it's kind of like life, right? You just keep reading and keep reading and keep reading, and you think, motherfucker, you're going to break through. I know it. I know it. I know it. You're going to show me and everybody else reading this damn book that it's possible. That's the hook. All right, so we are talking about the past tonight, and that is under the rubric of Cancer. That's right, Cancer. Cancer takes us into the past. Cancer is nostalgic. This is how Cancer operates. When we see the moon, we deal with the moon, we're dealing really with the past in a lot of ways, right? Because the moon represents the womb, and that's where we all come from. Not the moon, but the womb. It's part of our past. It's our beginning. Saturn on the other side is our future. Saturn navigates the space between the past and the future. It sits right at the edge of the outer planets, the edge of the inner planets. Saturn looks backwards and Saturn looks forwards, but the moon only looks backwards. And so we have Mars retrograde tonight. And of course, that's where the energy is taking us, backwards. If you could go back in time and change one thing about your life, would you do it? And we got, I would say, the majority, even though it's kind of close, I think the majority was no, I wouldn't, to some would part. And then a very few were in yes, everything. Deal me some new cards. I want to blow it up. But I think it's really an interesting conversation to have with the Moon Mars conjunction retrograde. And even Uranus coming in right here with the sextile and giving it a bit of a spin. I like it. Right? We're taking an experimental look. We're playing with reality a little bit, and trying to come up with perhaps a new point of view or a new perspective. Chiron over here in Aries, Aries is all about the will, and Chiron represents the wounded will, and overcoming that wound, so that the application of the will is integrated into the individual. And so we have Chiron squaring the moon tonight, and also squaring Mars. And when we look back in time, what was the thing theoretically that caused us to make these choices or not make these choices? Theoretically, it was our will, right? And we can go into a large dissertation, I'm sure, about that. I have different ideas about the will than other people do. But this is also part of this discussion that we're having, right? And maybe this will trigger some things in your own life, thinking about your past, and perhaps the best thing we can do in terms of, in lieu of going back and absolutely changing those things, right? Maybe the thing that we can do here and now, and I know it's probably pretty cliche, is get a kitten. No, what you can do now is have some form of resolution with the past. We have to have some degree of peace with the past. Sometimes it's harder than others. We have Lady Virgo lost a child. It's hard. It's a hard thing to reconcile. It's a lot harder than, yeah, man, I wish I bought Apple back in 1997, right? When Apple was not doing so well. Look at that Apple stock, man. It's doing shit. Yeah, Steve Jobs isn't around. A bunch of losers. Yeah, I think I'll buy Amiga. Amiga's looking good. But that's really what it's about. And this is really a topic of conversation here. Right? When we get into that Chiron square, we're kind of really talking about what we just talked about in the moment. And understanding that whatever you did or didn't do brought you to this moment in time. And to look, for me personally, there are certain things in my life that I wish I would have done better at certain moments in my life, but I'm not sure if I could go back and change those things. I'm not. They've all led me to be here in front of this, computer screen tonight. And had I changed some of those things, there's a chance I wouldn't be doing this. Um, I think for me, this is there were certain things when I was younger where I wish I would have had more character. The things that I was passionate about and I really loved, I wish I would have fought for them more. But I just didn't have a lot of confidence, and I had a real rough stretch of my family life where it wasn't really getting a lot of support. So in a lot of those instances, it was easier for me to fold the cards and not really go after what I wanted. That's something that I would change, because those are things that are sort of build who you are a little bit. And of course, life moves on, and we grow and do the best we can. And then that's why we have kids, right? Like, that's why we have children, or at least one of the reasons why we when we have children, we want to be able to instruct them and give them the things that we didn't have, or to share with them the experience that we had, but perhaps if they had a shot at doing it, that they wouldn't make the same mistake, or they wouldn't overlook the same opportunity. And it's a big reason why we have children. Not the only reason, but as parents, I think a lot of us have gone down that path with our children. And I remember early on with my son, he was doing jujitsu, and he was quite young, right? He was quite young, but he liked it. But there was a time where he might have been about 5, I think, and he was telling me that he didn't want to do it anymore. And this was one of the things that had happened to me when I was 6. I was about a year and a half older than him, and I was doing Kenpo karate when I was a kid, and I was actually pretty good at it. Me and my father were taking lessons, and I just decided not to go. And one night, after I got my yellow belt or something, um, and my father didn't make me not go. He didn't force me to keep going. He basically said, if you, in his mind, you want to quit, quit. And I remembered that. And I look back at that moment specifically, and it's like, he shouldn't let me do that, right? He should not have let me do that. Get me over the hump, or just get me over the hump, keep me going. 'Cause I was actually pretty good at it. And I didn't let my kid quit. I kind of tricked him a little bit. So why don't we go tonight, and we can talk about it afterwards. And Is that okay? And he had a great time. He never brought it up. So yeah, I mean, there are certain things here, but this is it, man. Like we're right here. We're right here with Chiron, and it's the healing of the wound of the will, the wounded will, the things we did and didn't do. We wish we could, but never will. Right. And the sun here in Aquarius, and this is a big part of my talking point, kind of where we are right now in Aquarius, is to be able to develop the witness self, to be able to step back and not be fully engaged, right, with every seeming detail that crosses our path now, because that's not where the stars are, right? Pluto is just entered into this 15-year reign over the sky, and there's intensity with Pluto and Aquarius, but Aquarius is also detached, and so this is a real interesting like algorithm of intensity and detachment. And when we have the sun coming in here, or even we'll go with Mercury, we'll throw Ceres into the mix. It gives us a sense of objectivity around Chiron and the things we did or didn't do. Look at even the sun, right? The sun at 21 Aquarius, right here, in conjunct with the moon. And to me, the inconjunct is it's like the missing link between cause and event. It's like that thing that drives us to do something, but we don't know why. That's really the inconjunct. It's the program that's running in the background, and we know it's there, but we don't really know how to access it all the time. It's the intuitive steps we have to take in order to bring two seemingly very disparate energies together. In this case, Moon in Cancer it's very family oriented. It's very internal. It's very subjective. It's filled with emotion and feeling. And then over here, you have Aquarius, which is not like that at all. Aquarius is cool. It's objective. It's non-feeling. It borders on the scientific. And Cancer is, it's deeply domestic. So we have this really interesting inconjunct tonight, right? And given the fact that we've talked about this kind of time journey, Aquarius is like the watcher. Just looks and watches, and doesn't have any like skin in the game. There was, Marvel Comics used to have this character, and he was on the moon. He was called the Watcher, and he somehow was able to affect outcomes simply by observing, right, and not being engaged in one outcome or the other. So the Sun in Aquarius is actually a really interesting piece to be a part of this kind of retrograde movement where we look back and say, what if? Could we have? If so, what and how much? And all of these Aquarian planets are about what? They're about moving forward. Like Aquarius is moving forward. Aquarius is moving forward towards the completion of the zodiac. Right? We got one more sign over, Pisces, and then we begin anew again in Aries. So Aquarius is in the home stretch here, right? And by the time we get to Pisces, we're really at the finish line in a lot of ways. They're bringing the horses into the barn, when it hits the 12th house, right? That's really the finish line is right there. The next race is over here, right there. So it doesn't have as much to do with the sun per se as it does with Pluto, as we have this close to 15-year reign in Aquarius, and the energies are moving forward. And this is a really interesting dynamic also between the moon, which represents a lot of the things that we know. Like tonight, I was watching this documentary called Heavy Metal Parking Lot, which these guys from Public Access TV, I think they did it in I don't know, 84 or something like that, 83, 84. And it was a parking lot in Landover, Maryland. And Judas Priest and Dawkins were playing at this concert. And there are all these teenagers, these heavy metal kids. And they're all out there getting high, drinking beer, and very much the past, and very, very much the past. And it's like, wow, we'll never see that again. And I don't know, maybe it's not a bad thing, right? But this is really endemic of our times. There are a lot of people who are terrified of what's coming. What were they talking about tonight? Like one of Elon Musk's Optimus robots or dogs or some shit like it was going to guard Trump in New Orleans. The idea of a robot dog or the idea of a robot bodyguard. We're also dealing with the whole currency issue. And who was it? Somebody really, really, really smart. It was Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz is smart. Whatever you think of Matt Gaetz, he's a smart guy. And he was coming at this, he did this tweet. He was coming at it from a kind of neutral perspective. And he basically said, hey, look, at some point, dollars are going to go the way of dinosaurs. And he said, the change is coming. It's not if, but when. And I'm not here to say it's positive or negative or good or bad. I'm just telling you, dollars are going to go the way of the dodo. That's coming. If you don't think that we're going to be flipped into some digital script, you're wrong. It's going to happen. And so we have that. We have all these massive changes going on. And I think when me and David and Evan met for the first time, before the inauguration, one of the things that I brought up was future shock and how things are going to happen so quickly that people aren't really going to have a lot of time to adjust to these changes. And they will be shocking. Well, here we are. We're almost 3 weeks now, the 10th to the 9th. So we're almost a month in, right? Isn't that the 20th? It was the 20th. We're 3 weeks in from the inauguration, and look at everything that's happened in just 3 weeks. I mean, people, this is happening at light speed. These changes are drastic. And so with this inconjunct, people, and I don't blame people. I'm kind of there too, right? Like there's things about the past that, like our lives, we don't want to just summarily throw them out. Because even the bad shit helped us make us who we are, for better or worse. And certainly we'd like to think some of the good shit helped along the way as well, right? So do we want to throw everything out from the past? I would say the answer to that is probably no. But the future is breathing down our neck. And the future is going to spook the fuck out of a lot of people. So there's some anxiety in the air. And if you're a person that has organic values, or you're a person that has, firmly committed to principles that are, very Cancerian, and, Cancerian, of course, being something bad. There's nothing wrong with it. It's about, being attached and connected to, this emotional sustenance of life, right? The things that we share, the memories. Cancer is the repository of memory, especially familial memory. And so when you have this social beast, right, breathing down our necks with this Aquarian inconjunct, it's like, well, how do we make a bridge between the inevitable and the things that we hold dearly to ourselves? Tradition, family, organic values, and then the oncoming velocity of change. This is a very interesting time that we're in, and it's coming. The change is coming. There's not a lot you can do to stop it. right? There's not a lot we can do to pump the brakes on, well, we don't like this. We don't like these people. Get them out. Get them out. We don't, if those people are meant to be there, they're going to be exposed, because that's also a part of what's going on with this whole Aquarian energy. This is an interesting bit around the Aquarian energy, that that there is a type of transparency that's built into it, right? Because on the other side of it, you have Leo, which is the ego, and Aquarius is the ego destroyer. Not that the ego needs to be destroyed, but it is the opposite. It is the non-egoic self in some ways, and it provides also a bit of an antidote to people who have hoarded power and lorded it over others in an imbalanced fashion. Aquarius is a destroyer in that regard. It is revolutionary energy. So this is also part of the mix. We're in such an interesting time. We're in a very interesting time. So one of the things I've been working with this whole Pluto and Aquarius piece is for people to be able to step back and not be attached to either something that looks fantastic and good, or necessarily evil and bad. It doesn't mean you have to be passive and accept it. You can have an opinion, you have a perspective, but I also feel like, especially with Jupiter in Gemini and Uranus not far behind, that we can flip our scripts. Even though Pluto in Aquarius is a fixed sign, right? It's deeply fixed. We can transform our perspective, and we can have another perspective. So to me, this is really we're going to talk more and more about Pluto tonight in Aquarius. It's a kind of a big part of the Trump thing. So I'll get into more of that as we get into Trump. We've got Saturn, Trudeau, Neptune. They're all in Pisces, and they're having a nice little tryst over here with the Moon and Mars in Cancer. I think tomorrow we wake up on Monday here. So for some of you, it's close to Monday. Like you folks down in New Zealand, it's probably Monday for you already. So you're waking up with a Cancer moon. I think we'll be waking up to a very late Cancer moon on Monday morning. It's kind of a hangover moon in some ways. Not quite top of the morning, cock-a-doodle-doo with the moon and Leo. But that's where I think we're going to start tomorrow, probably around 29 Cancer. Later in the day, that moon will move into Leo. The energy of the day will pick up tomorrow. I don't think the energy on Monday is necessarily, it's dreamy, right? It's that moon Neptune trine, it's dreamy. It's like, okay, instead of black coffee today, I'll get a double latte with I don't know, caramel or butterscotch, right? It's kind of nurturing. Or I'll get myself a maca latte or what. Tomorrow's not a straight black coffee day. Tomorrow's an ease into the day with a little bit of comfort and a little bit of adrenaline, right? That's the nature of the moon, sort of at those final degrees of Cancer. If you had it in Leo, well, you could, I don't know, buy everybody coffee. Yeah, it's a bit dreamy. Tonight will be interesting, especially for you people who are here in this time zone. I mean, Claire, it's pretty late over where you are. You're a night owl, Claire. So dreams tonight would be very interesting. Notice your dreams, and I'm wondering how much of your past shows up in your dreams tonight, or people from your past. I wonder if we'll get into some of that territory. I think there's a moon. This is the moon for that, like trine Neptune in Pisces for sure. So pay attention to your dreams tonight. Maybe, here you go. You could try this as a little bit of a reality check. See if you can go into your dreams tonight and change your past. Why not? Right? If you are the programmer, if you're the programmer, then get in and create the program. Be intentional. See if that works. You always let it go, but see if it works. I'm gonna try this tonight. Robert suggested this. Sounds fucking crazy. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna see if I can go back in the past and change something from my past. Right. And you could even focus on the thing that you want to change. Or I suppose if you want to invite, you know, God, Great Spirit, Creator to come in, your higher self, help you dial into the one that you do need to change, even though you're not aware of the one you need to change, but the one you think you need to change. You can do that. Maybe you can do that. Dial it up, see what happens. Perhaps nothing happens. Or maybe you wake up tomorrow and you're a completely different person. And you ask yourself, how did I get here? Um, but tonight's one of those nights. Why not? Why not? It's a dreamy kind of gateway to the past. Um, Venus getting ready to do the retrograde dance. Right? I think it's after the 28th though, because that's when all the planets are direct, right? Venus is in Aries, and it's now. Venus in Aries is now. Give it to me now. I want it now. Uh, if you have Venus and Aries in your chart, if there is a relationship you want, you usually get it. You get it because you want it, right? That is the object of desire, that Venus and Aries, and there's a lot of passion there, a lot of sizzle. But it's in detriment. So caveat emptor. Buyer beware. You'll get what you want, but what you want might not always be the long-term solution. Maybe perhaps it is. But man, I've seen Venus and Aries in action. All the like important quote unquote women in my life have had Venus and Aries. Just been around it a lot. And I've seen the different versions of it. And it's fresh. It's only in that third degree. So Venus and Aries is hot to trot. And we do have a sextile with Pluto. Ooh. Anytime you use the word sextile with Venus and Aries, things start to get a little spicy, right? So the law of attraction is very powerful right now. When Venus goes retrograde, you may want your money back. When it goes retrograde, hey, I want my money back here. Oh, sorry, you paid in full. You signed on that line. You can't have it back now. Oh, wait a second. Well, you might be able to get it back once it goes direct, but you're going to have to understand the spiritual ramifications of your choice now that Venus is retrograded back into Pisces. Ooh. You know what that's like? That's like getting somebody pregnant. That's like, okay, yeah, I'm in. And then Venus goes retrograde. Meaning you're in, but you were probably too in for too long, if you know what I mean. And then the retrograde into Pisces. Oh my God, there's ramifications for this. Okay. Guess I have to deal with the consequences. Right? So just keep that in mind with this Venus retrograde. It's hot now, but it may cool off considerably. Remember, this is post 28th because all the planets will be aligned and direct. They're not direct yet. Mars is still waiting to go direct. This is the parade of the planets, right here. Everything is in front of the sun. On the 28th, Mars stations. Actually, on the 28th, Mars goes direct. We'll station before that. Saturn's coming closer to this sextile with Uranus. It's going to be interesting, especially as it relates to money. I think we're going to see more and more laws, like these executive work. They're building this thing. They're building the bridge to the new economy because the United States is bankrupt, and they're dropping all this dead wood, all these bad assets, all this dead weight. And when they hit the reset button, they don't want it around. So you're going to see more and more official interaction with this idea of establishing a new form of currency. That's coming. The closer that Saturn gets into that sextile with Uranus, the closer and closer we get. There's more official action and traction. Now, we have some retrogrades that come up with Saturn. It goes into Aries, and then it retrogrades. And it goes, I think, to 1 Aries or 2 Aries. And then it goes all the way back to 25 Pisces. And then it finally moves forward again and is finally in Aries. All you late degree people in Pisces, you're going to have the sun. You're going to have Saturn scrubbing your sun. Or like if you are between 25 and 0 Pisces, Saturn is going to be your sandpaper, basically scrubbing your sun. Right? Like any kind of resistance you have to change in your life, like Saturn is just going to sandpaper that resistance away. Whether it's Venus or Mercury. Saturn Mars conjunctions are difficult. If it's plugged into the right area in your life, it can be good. You can be working tirelessly at something that hopefully you're invested in. If not, it's just a lot of hard work and a lot of effort, especially in Pisces. Mars in Pisces kind of tires easily. It's one of those Mars that needs to be inspired. It needs momentum, to build like a wave. The Mars and Pisces can be kind of interesting. But Saturn is like a dam. It dams Mars. So it's hard for Mars to express itself in Pisces. It's a lot of, so if you have Mars in Pisces, you're between 25 and 29 or right there, those 4 degrees. You got Saturn kind of going across your Mars. It's an interesting transit, because there are things you may want to throw the towel in with. And there are maybe other things where you have to work through it. And it's what that is? That's one of those moments where 3 years from now, you'll look back in your life and you'll ask yourself if you should have done something different. Because with Saturn, on Mars, you're either going to do one of 2 things. You're going to buckle down, and you're going to get through it. You're going to get it done, or you're going to throw in the towel. And who's to say if throwing in the towel isn't a bad thing? Sometimes throwing in the towel can be a good thing, especially if you've been doing something for a long period of time. You're saying, I'm just tired of doing it this way. There's nothing wrong with that. It's called surrender. There are other times where you don't want to give in too soon. Like sometimes it's a test, and you have to see what you're made of. And with Pisces, it's also subjective. So that's a tough one, right? That is but this is also, these late degrees of Pisces put it in the Scorpio decan, where it is very difficult to let go. I had a client on the other day, and I'm not going to divulge anything about her except for this transit. And she has Saturn crossing her sun. She has the sun at 21 degrees Pisces, right? And the sun was going over Saturn was going over her sun, just going into her 4th house. And I know she listens to the show, so I just want to say, first of all, a lot of courage to deal with what you're dealing with, and also the courage to make some difficult choices, right? So when we have Saturn crossing like the sun, what is Saturn known for? Saturn is known for limits and limitations. Saturn says no, but Jupiter says yes. Jupiter says yes. Go on, go for it, roll it, right? Roll the dice. Saturn says no. Restraint is the order of the day, especially when it's on your sun. You're being remade. This is you've been going through a cycle for 30 years now. There's a new you, and taking on more doesn't always It's not always better, right? So it was such a powerful session to work with somebody who's really, really, really wanting a win in their life, right? Wanting to win, and we all know what that looks like. Like, man, it's kind of like that Smith song. Please, 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 let me get what I want this time. We all know what that's like, right? And when you're not experiencing that, man, you're just thinking, well, when am I going to fucking have a win again? And it's very hard to have that kind of need and deep desire and be in a position where actually having more restraints and more structure and more order is going to be the win, right? Like, it's not sexy. It's not the roll of the dice or the spin of the wheel, but it sets you up for the future. And it's a tough one. It's a real tough one when you theoretically have been down and you're like, just, can I just get one shot? Just can I just get one shot? And then here your astrologer is saying, this is not the time for the one shot. You know, and God bless her. I think she's going to do great. There's other things involved. I don't want to get too deep into her chart. I'm just giving you an example. But that's what Saturn does. It brings limitation. It says no. And so for all you people, 25 and out with Saturn, because it's just going to. And some of you later degrees of Gemini, Sagittarius, and Virgo will get some of that as well. So Saturn is the great sandpaper of the zodiac. What else? Anything else? I think that's about it. Oh yeah, let's talk about Moon Mars. We'll get into that. Moon Mars Uranus sextile. That's like Uranus is ruled by Aquarius, which rules the future. Rules the future. And we have Mars looking backwards over here. Maybe looking backwards at your past brings you new insights. Able to kind of refresh the slate a little bit, right? Or refresh the memory well. Try the dream thing tonight. That'll be interesting. Maybe we meet back next week and tell me about your dreams. Oh, you had a dream, did you? Tell me about your dream. Oh man! All right. It reminds me of that movie that Daniel Day-Lewis was in. What was it? He plays a doctor. Philip Kaufman did it. The air was the unbearable lightness of being. The unbearable lightness of being. And Daniel Day-Lewis plays a doctor, and he has this line from the movie: take your clothes off." And he's that kind of a doctor, but he also crosses some very undoctor-like lines. Okay, all right. So let's talk about Trump. Let's get into Trump. Let's do this. Been a busy week for Trump. Now that he's just purchased Gaza. I don't think he's purchased it yet, but we spent. If you haven't listened to Friday's show with me and Russ Winter, man, I highly recommend you go back and check it out. It was a really good show. Russ and I, we don't really see eye to eye on Trump or the current administration, and yet we were able to have a disagreement and hash it out and kind of go back and forth, and it was really cool, right? It was a really cool exercise, and people not agreeing on something and finding some degree of common ground. Right, so I'm going to zoom in here. It's always good to take a look at the Trumpster's chart. So one of the things that after I watched that thing with him and Netanyahu, which initially I was completely disgusted by, but 24 hours later I had a different perspective. So I sort of flipped the Aquarian table on this thing, and I thought to myself, first of all, I don't think he likes Netanyahu. And there's some videos out there that talk about him. Where he talks about Netanyahu in the past. It's not real endearing. So I don't think he likes him in general. And I also don't think he wants to have to deal with the quote unquote Palestinian Israeli conflict while he's president. Because how many of the presidents have? Everybody really, since Harry Truman has, in one way, shape, form, or another. And you can tell Trump doesn't want to deal with it. And you say, well, it's nice he doesn't want to deal with it, but it's a mess, and these people fucked up, and they're bloodthirsty, Romulans, and all they want to do is commit genocide and take that land. I wouldn't have much dispute with you on that, to be honest with you. But at the end of the day, it's like, how do you change it? Like, are we going to go over there and send in the 101st Airborne Division and take over Israel? I mean, this is not going to happen, right? We're not. Pete Hegseth is not going to commit troops to go attack Israel and tear Israel apart. And hey, Palestinians, here you go. We'll help you build it back up. We're sending these people back to where they came from. Oh yeah, it's that place called Kazakhstan. See it right up there? That's where they're going. Right? Where they're going to have their own place. Now, it's not really going to work that way. But that said, right? How do you change the situation? So I got into this on Friday, and first of all, you have to change the power dynamic. You have to change the power dynamic. The United States has been the bottom to Israel's top, and Trump is going to be the top. This is who he is. I'm going to show you. I've got Netanyahu and Trump's charts together, and some very interesting things are in that chart. Very interesting. When we get there, I'll show you. So I was arguing, not even really arguing, I was just putting this out, that in order to change the Israeli situation, that Trump has to do this from a completely asymmetric space, in an asymmetric place. And even like when he said we're going to own it, a lot of people have commented over how Netanyahu was completely surprised when he says this. Right? He's like, "Whoa!" It's almost like he gets hit with some kind of an air gun or something. So, he goes kind of jolts back a little bit. He wasn't expecting it. Now Trump could pull him aside and say, "Hey, I just had to say that so that we could pull this thing off or whatever." But if you're Netanyahu, do you really trust that? I wouldn't. So he's got Netanyahu kind of on his heels a little bit, and he's got to flip the power dynamic. And Gaza's completely fucked now. There's no way it can be rebuilt, and so we're headed down this path, right? And I thought to myself, okay, like what is Trump really doing? It's very hard to know what Trump is really doing, and I'm gonna show you why. So Trump is right there. That is his son. right? 22 Gemini. And then, of course, he's born on a lunar eclipse with the moon in Sagittarius. And then we have Uranus over here, right? So Trump, with his Uranus Sun conjunction, makes him very Aquarian, right? He's like a Gemini on steroids. You don't always know where he's coming from. And that Sun Uranus conjunction makes him incredibly disruptive. Trump is a disruptor. He's a lot of things. He's a lot of things, but he is clearly a disruptor. Now, when you have Uranus Jupiter trine, is Jupiter's retrograde, you see that? He has this Uranus Jupiter. Uranus Jupiter trines are very interesting in charts. It allows the person to be spontaneous and improvisational, and it gives them a real sense of vision. Because Jupiter rules Sagittarius, which is like visionary. And so it's really like bang on 17 to 17. So when Trump did that little stunt there with BB, I guarantee you BB didn't know what was coming, because Trump in a lot of ways is the master of improvisation. Now you think he's improvising, but he's already gone through. Steve Bannon was talking about this today. Steve Bannon says when Trump was out of office, his not only was he doing everything in his power to kind of right the ship and get his feet under him and deal with all these lawsuits, he was already planning for coming back and putting all these kind of plans in place, right? So, he's fighting for his legal life, but he's also like double tracking, which is what Gemini does. Okay. So look at that degree. Now, in astrology, I do think degrees matter, not because of like where they are in the decan, like he's third decan Gemini, which puts him where in the Aquarian decan or decan. So that's double, right? Sun Uranus conjunction, Aquarian decan. But also the number 22 has significance. Now, the number 22 is related to the what? Master builder. So in numerology, we go 1 through 9, and then we get to 10 and we go back to 1. But if we go to 11, that's a master number. And then the next double digit after that, that's another master number, 22. 22 is the master builder. So Trump, we know, is a builder. That's what he does. Taurus midheaven. With the sun here at 22, is he a master builder? Maybe. I think he is. Probably qualifies. High level building, high level thinking. Master builders, people that have 22 as part of their vibration, right? Even though he's not born in the 22nd, he is the 22 sun, 22 degree sun. So we'll give him some of that 22 vibration, right? So people that have that tend to think big, build big. It's part of what they're supposed to do, right? Now, when you think of the number 22 in terms of like beyond numerology, but in terms of the tarot, the 22nd card in the tarot, as most of you are probably very aware, is the Fool. So what I want to do is I want to bring the Fool right here so you guys can. So it is the 0 card, but it is also the 22nd card of the major arcana. So when you get to the final card, which is the World, right? That card is 21. And then it goes to the next card, which is the Fool, which is 0 and 22. It is the sum total of all parts, and it is nothing. And the ruler of the Fool is the planet Uranus. And when you look at the Fool's a very interesting character, right? He's got his rucksack, and he's somewhat like uh, the Hermit, somewhat like the Hermit. Like he's by himself, doesn't have a care in the world, no care in the world, and looks like he's about ready to to step right off that cliff. And with that little white dog that's with him, kind of nipping at his heels, right? Is that dog gonna nip him so he goes right off the cliff, or does he stop him, or is the dog gonna just take an air bath with him at the same time? And who's to say that if the Fool steps off the cliff, that he doesn't fall? Right? This is the thing about the Fool. He's blithely unaware of his surroundings in some way. So there's an unconsciousness about the Fool. He does things in a way that are natural and unconscious. And on the other hand, that unconsciousness can, lead him to the path of ruin. He can lose everything, right? 0 and 22, all or nothing. It's a great card. If you're born on the 22nd, this is your card. This is the card that rules you, right? If you're born on the 4th, you're not ruled by the Fool. You're ruled by the Emperor, right? 22 would be the higher value of 4. So all you 22nd people out there, this is your card, and this is how you're wired. And there's a Uranian impact that people born in the 22nd have in other people's lives. Now, Trump is not born on the 22nd, but that's his sun at 22 degrees. And if we translate that over, that is the 22nd degree of the zodiac and the Fool. And some people will tell you that Trump is a fool. He's funny as hell, man. Like, and then he gets out there and he's shoveling French fries, and he's wearing his garbage man vest, right? Like Donald Trump plays the fool, literally plays the fool. And I bet you he plays other people for fools as well. And this gets me into this whole thing with Netanyahu in the chair. And I looked at that, I was so fucking disgusted. Right? I'm like, yeah, you pulled out the chair for that slimy ass motherfucker. And then I thought about it. I'm like, okay, maybe what he's doing is he's practicing a little art of war on the guy. Right? This is what I think is happening. And he's getting BB so comfortable. So comfortable. BB this, BB that, BB this, BB that, BB this, BB that, right? So comfortable that Netanyahu is kind of forced to trust him in some ways. Right? And this is the public side. The private side, who the hell knows what they talk about? Trump probably says everything BB wants to hear. He'll probably tear other people down in front of BB just to let BB know that, like, oh yeah, he's one of us, or he's on our side. But you go back to that Jupiter Uranus trine in Trump's chart, and he's a master improviser, and he can come off like a fool, and he can play other people for fools, right? And I think this is a fascinating kind of heat check for where we are with Pluto in Aquarius, right? Because the Fool is ruled by Uranus, and Uranus, of course, is the ruler of Aquarius. So when we see these things happening, part of this, I think, is Trump kind of flying by the seat of his pants. Part of this is also part of a roadmap that he's got in his psyche somewhere. And another part of this is him having to deal with contracts and deals that he's made. So it's a very interesting combination or synthesis of all these different things. And one of the things that, this is a tough one, right? Because a lot of times we want to be able to just put our finger on it and say, this is bullshit. Fuck this. I don't support this. I'm not down with this. And there are times where that's important. And when COVID hit, I think a lot of you were in that boat. Fuck this. I don't support this. I'm not down with this. There's a time for that. If it comes around again or something like it comes around again, you're well within your bounds as a human to respond accordingly. If your kid wants, if they want to draft your kid, send your kid to go fight some fucking stupid war, you have every right to respond accordingly. This is me, right? So there are things that we're not just going to be completely indifferent to, but with Aquarius, we have to wait a little bit. You know, this is the thing that I'm sort of preaching, is that we have to wait a little bit to see the effects of the thing that's actually unfolding before our eyes. And the great teacher with Pluto and Aquarius is going to be detachment. And again, it doesn't mean that you can't be passionate about something, right? You know, you can be passionate about it. You can if you want, you can right the wrongs of society in your head, in your on your YouTube channel, your blog, whatever. Nobody's saying you cannot do that. And I think it's incumbent upon us to say something, do something, engage with something that fundamentally is not right, based upon what we consider to be, you know, right and true, loving, whatever that is. Everybody's got their own sort of, you know, standards for that. But on the other hand, this is, you know, we're in a very different part of the universe now, like really different part of the universe. And being able to be detached while stuff's going on where you may feel uncomfortable is probably the best place to be. Just like wait it out, wait it out. Let's play it out a little bit. Let's see where this thing goes. Right? Because this whole event with that, you know, triggered so many people. And at the end of it, I'm 90% convinced that he completely pulled the rug out from Netanyahu, and that this is going to be the way that he flips the power exchange. But you can't go there unless you're willing to step back a little bit and see this thing for what it might be. And this is just, you know, and this is his calling card. You know, we are dealing with the audacity of the fool. And Jupiter has gone direct and is getting ready to hit his sun again. And you haven't seen anything yet. Like, here, let me go back to his chart so you have a visual here. There's Jupiter. There's his sun. It's not even on Uranus. Jupiter's at what, like 12 degrees right now? So, right there, 13. So 13 degrees. It's got 4 degrees before it hits his Uranus. Comes into a Uranus, a Jupiter trine. Jupiter conjunction Uranus. Oh boy, look out. He's just getting cooking. He's just getting cooking. So when does that flip? Let me just see. Let's get a handle on that. All right. So his Jupiter is at what, 17 degrees? I'm sorry, his Uranus is at 17 degrees. So that's April 8th. That's when Jupiter comes in. and conjuncts his Uranus, trines his natal Jupiter. That's a day of really significant change. If he's still, in the turbo steamroller mode, right? That's going to be a huge, huge day, like a game-changing day. Also, Mars is at any time along that 17 degrees. From the what is it, the 8th of April to the 12th of April, and then by the time it hits his sun at 22 degrees, which is in May, 5-5, so you get some of that double number, right? That's another really big period of time. Mars goes into his 12th house. That's a period where he should be somewhat, I'd say, somewhat careful. Mars is getting ready to come in and conjunct Pluto. I mean, that's the other thing with Trump making all these changes. He can become a real target. So when me and David and Evan were looking at this, and this Mars transit of his 12th house, like, it happens every 2 years. And I thought, this time could be really tricky, especially as it passes through that opposition with Pluto. It's already been there once. So when Jupiter hits Uranus, transiting Mars will be on his Venus and then squaring Jupiter. It's going to be an interesting time contractually. Right? He could go back on deals with that Mars Venus conjunction squaring Jupiter. But this Jupiter transit, which is what I'm talking about, is the transit that's major, massive. Why? Because Jupiter went retrograde, and it's been kind of hovering back here, up in the 10th house, sort of rewinding, getting some momentum, and that's what's been happening. Now it's getting some momentum. So very interesting. Trump is going to be super active in May and April. And the thing that I've been trying to talk about, maybe some of you people are starting to get this now, is this whole Gemini thing, right? He's like working these parallel tracks. And some of it, you look at it and this looks shitty, right? And on the other side, you look at it and you go, oh my God, this is actually really interesting. So he's running these parallel tracks. And Steve Bannon had something interesting to say about a 2-hour interview he did recently. And he said, the guy who was talking to him was from England. And Bannon used a word I'd never heard before. I don't know where he got it. If he thought of it, I got to give him credit. It's called the broligarchy, right? And the broligarchy being Elon Musk and these tech guys. And it all started with Mark Zuckerberg going to Mar-a-Lago and basically begging for forgiveness and wanting to kiss the papal ring, right? And Trump had all those tech guys up there during his inauguration. And Bannon had a very different take on it than other people. So if you go back to 2016, none of those guys were Team Trump. Musk wasn't anti-Team Trump, but Mark Zuckerberg was. And I believe Jeff Bezos was as well. A lot of those guys were deeply embedded in the Obama sort of paradigm at that time still, right? Because that's how they were being rewarded financially. It was through the support of a certain type of system, which had certain kinds of social talking points and markers and all that bullshit, right? So Trump comes along and they're not into him because their paymasters aren't into him either. And so there begins a very contentious relationship, especially on the Facebook side, because in 2020, Mark Zuckerberg did everything in his power, theoretically, to not let Trump win, right? So Steve Bannon talks about these guys being there, and they're there. You got Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez and her fake tits and her fake face, and they're there, and Zuckerberg, they're all there. Why are they there? Trump was parading them and using them as like conquest power. Those. This is what Bannon said. Those were the water buffalo trophies that Teddy Roosevelt used to come back with when he'd go hunting. That's what they were. Like it's when he put it that way, I thought that's really interesting, right? So instead of, and that's not to say that they won't have like some kind of a stake in the business, right, or a stake in their role as it relates to the government. Amazon is a huge player. Of course, Jeff Bezos is gonna, Jeff Bezos in the Amazon cloud. A lot of government systems run on the cloud. They outsource it to the cloud anyway. But this is like a whole different time, right? A whole different paradigm that we're in now. And Trump is clearly this fool. And the fool is capable of changing the course of everything because the fool doesn't understand limitations. The fool is not guided or bound by the same kinds of rules or laws that other people who are invested in looking a certain way or acting a certain way. And Trump will, if he has to, he'll act with dignity or whatever. He'll thank the people that, made something happen. He's always very good at that, but he can fucking be as foolish as anybody. And this is what I think is lost on people. Like this is a guy that is, he's just different, right? And it's that Sun Uranus conjunction, and you never know where he's coming from. You never know where he's coming from. He said, like, what's it? He said something about 3 times in his speech. He was talking about like what gasoline or coffee or something like that. Everybody thought, well, he's all senile. No, I don't think so. Like he's making kind of an obtuse point. I forget what it was. But now he can make a mistake once. He might make a mistake once, but not twice or 3 times. 3 times it's coming across for a reason. Now, do I trust Trump? No, I don't trust Trump. I don't think anybody should trust Trump. Why? I've said this before. He's got this Mercury Neptune square, Mercury Jupiter square, right? Like this is not trustworthy. I'll tell you what you want to hear. Right? I'll tell you what you want to hear. But don't expect me to necessarily stand by what I'm telling you, right? Like that's not how this really works. So in that regard, he's very fluid. So if I was Bibi Netanyahu, I wouldn't trust him at all. But in some ways, he doesn't have any real options. And as long as Trump plays the game reasonably well, he might be able to flip this script. And one of the things that I've said is that for Trump, his goal is to become more popular than Netanyahu. Like that's his goal, to become more popular than Netanyahu. Let's see, what do we have here? Okay, not that one. In Netanyahu in Israel, like that's his goal. And if he can become more popular than Netanyahu in Israel, he can supplant the power from him. It's about halfway there. All right, so what does it look like with Bibi Netanyahu? I brought their charts together. Okay, so now Bibi is a Libra. It's so funny. I think last week I did this thing with Netanyahu and Trump over on Rumble, and I said, the goal here is to flip the script and to make Israel the bottom. And somebody put in the comments, Libras are always the bottom. It's a little rough, right? But Aries might have something to say about that. Anyway, so yeah, he's a Libra. And check this out. So Netanyahu he's kind of close to Trump, right? They're 3 years apart, so you're going to get some overlap with Neptune. Um, Now Netanyahu has the moon in Libra, and he has Neptune here as well. And what is it doing? It's conjuncting Trump's Jupiter. And what is Trump's Mercury doing right here? It is squaring Jupiter, Neptune, and the moon. So remember, I said Trump will lie, right? I think he's feeding BB a line of bullshit, right? And what's interesting here, this is all like second house and related to land, related to physical values, right? Physical material values. And Libra's about agreement. And the moon is certainly connected to this idea of the home. I think Trump is playing this dude. I think he's playing him, right? With all these squares going on. Now, Netanyahu's Uranus is very close to Trump's moon. I'm sorry, Mercury. And it's retrograde, so it's kind of moving back and away from it. And I do think that there's something repellent about Netanyahu and Trump. Now, when you look at BB's Mars, this is where it gets interesting. His Mars is conjunct Trump's Mars, and also Israel has Mars around the same degree. So all three, Netanyahu's Mars, Trump's Mars, and Israel's Mars, they're all right around, that 28th degree of Leo. So you could say, well, they're all in cahoots. They're all in this together. As an astrologer, I look at that, I wouldn't have a problem with that. That said, when you have two Marses here, if they're not working together, they're fighting against one another, because this has to do with the alpha, right? Trump with Mars on his ascendant, that's alpha material. Whatever you think of Trump, like if I were to say this wasn't Trump's chart and it was just Mars, you would say, oh yeah, okay, well that fits Alphaville. It does. So Trump has Mars on his ascendant. He always wants to be the alpha, for better or worse, whatever. Right? Sometimes there's pride and ego involved, but now you've got. Is there room? Is there enough room on Trump's ascendant for two alphas? I don't know about this. If they're working together, then those two Mars are going to be hard to, you double them up, they're going to be hard to take down. If you double them up. But you may not double them up. This may be these two Marses in conflict with one another. Now, technically speaking, if they were on the other side of the chart, yeah, sure, they'd be in opposition. But does he want to share the alpha status with his Mars, with BB's Mars? I don't think he does. And BB's Saturn is in his first house. That's a lot of limitation, right? And what's it doing? It's squaring his sun. So Trump has his sun at 22 Gemini, and BB's Saturn is, where is it? Right there, 19 Virgo. Or what, 8, was it 15 Virgo? I got to zoom in a little bit. Let me see here. Let's see, where we at? Yeah, 15 Virgo. 7 degrees, that's a square. That's the sun, 22. Oh, his Uranus, oh, that's even tighter, right? 17. So his Saturn is squaring Trump's sun, 2215, squaring his Uranus, 1715. That's a tight square. Like BB cramps his fucking style, right? He cramps his style. Like he tries to assert authority over Trump with Saturn in his first house. And Trump doesn't like it. I'll tell you that right now. He doesn't like it. So this is what I think is happening. I think Trump is working him over a little bit. That's what I think. It just has to do with the nature of these squares. Like he's telling him shit, right? Remember I said you can't trust him, and especially around things like land. You got Neptune down here. This is a game of high stakes poker. This is what we're playing. I think Trump's going to take him down, especially with these dueling Mars. There's only room for one Mars on Trump's ascendant, and it's not BB's. I can tell you that right now. And then this square forcing him, like he's being forced in a lot of ways to conform. Sun Uranus conjunction doesn't like to conform. They're about freedom. So I could be completely, absolutely, and utterly wrong, but I don't think I am. The one thing that I do have some faith in this time versus in 2016 is that Ivanka and Jared is still around, and he's going to go play real estate developer in Gaza, right? That's going to be Jared's new role. Get him the fuck out of the country, let him go over there. But Ivanka's not around. And my feeling is that the first 4 years of Trump, and Ivanka's a Scorpio, right? She's a Scorpio. So she's a Scorpio. I think both her and Jared also have Jupiter in Libra as well, if I'm not mistaken. So they're making money. Trump won, they're making money. She's in his ear. She's like his social conscience, whatever. She's not there. But she is not involved. And I think Ivanka being that close to the White House and Jared being that close to the White House was not good for Trump, and it wasn't good for the country. So she's not around. So he's not having to filter everything through, her lens so that she can stay in good stead with her New York socialite liberal friends. I think he's playing him. I think he's playing him. Remember, he's the fool. Sun Uranus conjunction, Sun at 22 degrees, which is the number of the fool in the major arcana. Trump is the fool. And he's either playing them for a fool or he's acting the fool, right? And everything and nothing is at stake. So this is going to be an interesting piece to watch. This is going to be a very, very interesting piece to watch. I can't do 3 synastry charts. If I could, I'd throw Israel's in there, and you'd see all 3 Marses just lined up, which is pretty intense in a lot of ways. But for now, we're just going to go Mars, and I don't think they're on the same page, especially in Leo. Like if BB's Mars was in Virgo and it was down here, like okay, BB would play the subordinate role. He'll play the subordinate role with his Mars, but it's not. It's not. So we got dueling Marses. Okay. This is really just what I wanted to talk about in terms of the Trump side of things and what's going on with Pluto and what's going on with Aquarius, and how in a lot of ways we're going to have to sort of detach and not be completely invested, and to kind of flip things over and to look at it from a different perspective. This is not business as usual. We are not in Pluto and Capricorn anymore. And if there was going to be a guy who was going to be the figurehead or the lightning rod for the times, it is Trump. I'm convinced now. With the Sun Uranus conjunction, which is about as Aquarian as it gets, without being an Aquarian, with his sun being in the Aquarian decan, this is the guy for the time. He's the guy for the time, for better or worse. I tend to like chaos. I think chaos is interesting. I've always done a lot better with chaos than I have with order, although I've had to learn a little bit of order along the way. So embrace the chaos. Hug the chaos. Because you're just not trust me with one thing tonight. One thing. Things are not going to happen the way that we think they're going to happen in the big picture in terms of the dystopic vision. They're not going to go down that way. And I'm not saying you should let your guard down or not continue to, do what you do in order to make sure that if things go south, you're good, right? It's this dystopic thing is, there's a lot of energy, maybe some momentum, certainly money behind it. I just don't. It's not going to go that way because it's the nature of Aquarius, where you may have these people that are going to go, hey, we're going to go do, like, look at the World Economic Forum. I don't think they're that powerful right now. And what, 4 years ago, everybody, Klaus Schwab was on everybody's brain. You'll have nothing to be happy. And who knows? Maybe we'll have a different version of it, but it won't be the World Economic Forum version of it. We just really like lean into it, feel it. You can feel it. You can feel the winds of change. That's not happening, right? That is not happening. And if it is going to happen, well, it's not if it's going to happen, but if there's going to be a massive change, then it's not going to be the United States and the West who are dragging up the rear. There's a major sea change afoot here, and just do your best to stay kind of detached and neutral, and see where these things go. Right, and try to understand this kind of dualism, this kind of dualistic sort of magic that is being played out. I talked about this with Russ on Friday. You look at Trump's two main mentors. Uh, what's his name? Norman Vincent Peale, right? Like Mr. Positivity. He was like a bishop, but he was also a Mason, by the way. But anyway, he was one of these. He was like a new thought leader, the power of positive thinking. That's who it is, right? Russ's parents gave him that book to read, The Power of Positive Thinking. And you have, on the other side, you have Roy Cohn, who's one of the dirtiest, filthiest scumbag motherfuckers around, right? He was Mr. Leverage. He was going to use leverage at any possibility to get a deal done. And he was Trump's mentor. So Trump has these mentors. They're very, very different. Like one, he educates him into the really dark and seedy ways of the world. And the other educates him with divine, heavenly, you create your own reality thoughts, right? So this is what makes this guy up in a lot of ways. So when you see these things happen, you also have to realize like the twin pillars of his spiritual mentorship, both light and dark. You always reserve the right to put your foot down and say no. This is not a blank check or an all access pass to your consciousness where you just say, all right, I'm all in. You always have the right to say no. You always reserve that right. And that's, as Americans or as humans, we are entitled to that. So you can say no to what I'm saying. You can say no to what Trump is saying. You can say no. And no is valid. I just think that given where we are astrologically, taking a bit of a deeper dive into this number 22, right? This number of the Fool, all or nothing, Aquarius, Trump's sun at 22, the Sun Uranus conjunction, the Sun being in the final decan of Gemini, which is the Aquarian decan. Not everything is as it seems, and especially not this interaction. There's way more going on here than meets the eye. Way, way more. And I think this is my. Let me get this back up here. I'm sorry, you're not seeing this. I apologize. screen back. Right here. This is exactly what I'm talking about, right? This is more than meets the eye. And I think this guy is being played. He's being played. He may even know he's being played. He's a smart motherfucker. But even smart motherfuckers sometimes get trapped. All right. So we've been going for what, 2 hours? All right. So last night, we went to go see Becoming Led Zeppelin. And it was like the first time I'd been to a movie since the Sound of Freedom, I think. I think it was the last time I went to the movies. And prior to that, the last time I'd been to the movie was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So I don't go to the movies very often. But this Led Zeppelin documentary was really good. And it really talks about the beginning of the band. It doesn't take you all the way through the conclusion of the band. It starts with, here, I'll bring it up here. See if I can give you a visual here. See what I'm talking about. Let me see if I can get a good image. You know, I'd love to play a trailer, but fuck. I get zapped with copyright shit when it comes to the trailer stuff. I'll just go through so you can see some of the images. And it talks about Zeppelin and how they got started. All right, so there they are. I think they're probably the greatest rock band ever. I think they're way better than the Who. The Who kind of strike gold early, and, you know, by the time Who's Next is done, they're sort of a lot of their best materials behind them. Sabbath is great, right? Sabbath is going to go carve out a path in heavy metal. Like their Sabbath will wind up influencing Soundgarden and Nirvana and all these bands later on. But they're not Led Zeppelin. They can't hold the band together. They have, you know, by the time they get with the fifth or sixth record, like Ozzy's gone, he's replaced. You know, it's just they don't have the same continuity as Zeppelin does. I think Deep Purple is a great band, but again, they don't have the continuity. By the time you get past Stormbringer, Richie Blackmore's gone, and it's a different band. It's not the same band. Whereas Led Zeppelin is more like the Beatles in that they're intact with the same members for the entirety of the band. And while the Beatles dominate the 70s, 60s rather, it's Led Zeppelin that takes the torch from the Beatles, and they dominate the 70s. So this is all about how they come together. And one of the things that really, and you know, of course, I know a lot about the story, right? One of the things that really struck me, there they are. There's the young Zeppelin. It's a really good documentary, and if you go to an IMAX theater, you'll have great sound. And one of the things that really struck me about Zeppelin was the pairs inside the group. So you have Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones. These two guys were playing a shit ton of session work, right? Just a shit ton of and they started young. Like they were playing these sessions at 15 years old, 16 years old, because they knew how to play the modern music. right? And both Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones are Capricorns. And these guys are they're the twin pillars of Led Zeppelin. It's these two. Now, these two come as a pair as well, which is interesting, but they're a very different kind of pair. You know, Plant is a Leo. I mean, look at him. Looks like a fucking Leo. That is a personification of Leo. And Bonham is a Gemini. And he's born May 31st, has the same birthday as Clint Eastwood, Brooke Shields, Walt Whitman. So these guys are from the Midlands. They come as a pair. And these guys come from basically London, and they're coming as a pair, but they're a very different kind of pair. They're like super seasoned, really seasoned. And when I watched the movie, I was really struck by Page's, even to this day, like you can tell Jimmy Page is a smart dude. Page's intelligence, right? Like his intelligence was beyond his years, totally beyond his years. And Jimmy Page is a really interesting chart. Let me bring it up here. So he has these very hardcore Capricorn traits, right? And look at his Sun Mercury, right? Sun Mercury conjunction, 1717. And you know, a lot of people will sort of get into the whole kind of Kazemi factor, right? That the sun sort of blots out Mercury, Mercury blots out the sun. I tend to think of this as a little bit different, and that he is of one mind and one body. Right? When you have Mercury and the sun that close, if you are completely aligned with your goal, right? There's nothing that can theoretically stop you, especially in Capricorn. Now we talk about decans. This puts him in the Taurus decan. So, you know, bro wants some money. He wants some money. You know, he wants the things of the world. This is what Capricorn is aspiring towards here. And one of the things that you will encounter during the movie is, as you watch it, is that Jimmy Page knew exactly what he wanted to do every fucking step of the way. Every step of the way. And it all starts when he starts going to these sessions and, you know, plays guitar and learns from all of these much older musicians. And he plays on all these different kinds of records. And he plays on the Bonham record. So he plays the guitar solo on Sunshine Superman. Almost sounds like a sitar, right? He and John Paul Jones play on the song Goldfinger together. John Paul Jones talked about they're recording, they're at Trident Studios, and Shirley Bassey singing, and she's doing all the, you know, all the Goldfinger shit when she sings, right? And they're playing it. You know, these guys were cutting their teeth. And I'm going to get to John Paul Jones in a minute. They're cutting their teeth at a very young age. It's Capricornian, right? And, you know, Page doesn't have much else going on with that Sun Mercury, right? He's going to set goals and reach those goals. You know, and he's got this Chiron moment at the age of 15, 16. Right? And I'm going to go in this direction. Something happens to him right around 15 years old. And a lot of times we think of Chiron as being sort of negative, or like it takes a chunk out of us. I think with Jimmy, it was different. I think it was different. I think that's when he leans into that Sun Mercury conjunction. And the thing is, with these sessions, you couldn't fuck up. If you fucked up, you were gone. So it was a very high pressure gig, but they're making money. These guys are making money. Then eventually he gets tired of it, and What does he do? He goes and he hangs out with his buddy Jeff Beck and the Yardbirds because he was done with sessions. He was like, I was done. I knew it. I was done. I wanted my own group. And he and Jeff Beck had grown up together. Jeff Beck gave him a guitar, and that became his guitar. He shows it in the movie. He says, "This was my Excalibur." And he jumps off with the Yardbirds, and they're on tour in America, and Jeff Beck leaves the band. The thing about Jimmy Page, which is very interesting, is you never get a sense that this guy ever fucking panics or sweats. And he never ever really, at least as far as his career, he never burned bridges. He was political in a way that a Capricorn can be political because he's going somewhere, and everybody is useful to some degree, right? And I think with Venus and Sagittarius, to me, this is sort of the best example of this, like in terms of relationships. They're going to be very open-ended in a lot of ways. And with Mars on the other side, you would think, okay, well, he's going to get into conflict with either being too conciliatory with Venus in the first, and then over here trying to get his way with Mars on the other side in Gemini. But I don't really think when you go through and look at Page's life, and the results are the things that count and that matter, he was kind of in alignment. He wasn't really at war and at odds with anybody. He just had an idea and a plan and a vision. And so relationships, I think, instead of being in opposition to the activation of his will, actually served his will. Right? He doesn't make enemies. Jimmy Page does not make enemies. And you can tell that when he's young, he's polite. He's always like he asked questions. So when he did the Sunshine Superman with Donovan, the guy that he worked with was this very well-known guy named Mickey Most. And Mickey Most was also involved with the Yardbirds. He was a big kind of music mogul in England. So they're in the studio and they're cutting Sunshine Superman, and Jimmy Page is asking Mickey Most all these questions about production. Like, he is getting as much information. He's soaking up as much as he can with this moment, so that moving forward, he'll have these notes and he'll kind of know his way around the board. What does this do? Why are you doing this in this moment? Not in an obtrusive way, but he's a Scorpio rising. He's always going to ask questions. And so Page is very calculated, but he doesn't burn bridges. And once he figures out what he wants to do, he's got this Mars-Uranus conjunction, and it is bang on. Let's go. He does not waste any time. He's got Mars sextile as Pluto, so he's able to make things happen. And he was, again, very calculated, right? So he wanted to get this guy Terry Reid as the singer of the band. And as soon as Mickey Most heard that he wanted Terry Reid to sing, Terry Reid was like, Mickey Most was like, we're gonna sign him. Sorry, you can't have him. And so they eventually get wind of Plant and Bonham. So they go up to the Midlands to go see Plant. And they walk up to him and John Paul Jones walk up to him. And he says, we're looking for a bloke named Robert Plant. Do you know who he is, where he might be? And he basically says, I'm Robert Plant. Right? Like, it actually happens that way. But by this time, John Bonham had split off with this guy named Tim Rose, who was sort of like this electric folk artist. And John Bonham's wife did not like Robert Plant because Robert Plant got him in trouble all the time. So they get Plant, and they're like, okay, well, we need a drummer. And they were tossing around all these different names, like, I don't know, I forget who, Carmen Appice, or I don't know who they were tossing around, but uh, Plant says, like, no, there's only one guy, and it's John Bonham. So John Bonham he was playing with Tim Rose, and he was married, he had a kid. That was his job, right? So they said, okay, can we pay him more than Tim Rose is paying him? He said, okay, let's get him down. So they got together and they went to this recording studio, and they did a version of Train Kept a Rolling, and it just clicked. And when you hear them talk about it, they all knew that something was in the air. They all knew that they were on the precipice of something really happening, right? In that room, in that recording studio, it was like the spirits had brought Lucifer, the devil, probably, who knows, right? But then, so Page is quite good. And the Yardbirds had a tour. Like there was this weird thing with the name. So they had a tour scheduled for, I think it was in Sweden. And they were going there under the guise of the new Yardbirds. So they got to road test this band. And they got a really good feeling of this thing. Right. They're like, man, this is something. We got something here. And so they of course changed the name. Keith Moon gave them the name Led Zeppelin. And Peter Grant at this point says, okay, let's get you a deal. Let's get you a record deal. So Page and John Paul Jones take the band into the recording studio. They completely record the first record. Led Zeppelin 1 is done. Right. And then they go to the United States and they deal with Ahmet Erdogan and the other guy, Jerry Wexler. And they sign with Atlantic Records. It's huge deal. And they get every fucking thing they want. Everything they want. There's no advance. The record is already done. They listen to it. They're gobsmacked. Totally gobsmacked. So, there's no advance, right? Because they use their own money for the recording studio, their own time. Jimmy produced it himself, right? This is like amazing. This is your Sun Mercury conjunction right here. This is how planned out this thing is. And so they get everything they want. The label cannot interfere with any part of the album production process, period, end of story. That was their deal. They got it. Like, usually you get fucked over big time by these record companies. Led Zeppelin never had to redo their deal. They started their own imprint. They got Swan Song Records, which I believe Atlantic hooked them up with so they could have some other artists on Swan Song. But that's how smart Page was. Like, that's the Capricornian thing. Like, he has a vision. He has a plan. Right? So let's bring John Paul Jones into the mix here, because he's the other part of this. And I don't know his birth time, so I kind of took a stab at it. John Paul Jones is also, as you'll note, a Capricorn. Right? So Jimmy Page is born on January 9th, 1944. John Paul Jones is born on January 3rd, 1946. So Jimmy is older than him by 2 years. But their suns are conjunct, Capricorn. And Jimmy Page is sort of the ultimate, like, outsider in a lot of ways. Like, he never gets married. If he did, we don't really know about it. But John Paul Jones is married. He is a very traditional guy. And so the amazing thing about John Paul Jones, again, this is all the Capricorn stuff, right? Is that when he's 14, he becomes the organ master for his local church. Now, John Paul Jones grows up in a musical family. He's his father is a musician, his mother's a dancer, and so he's around these instruments all the time. And he saw a bass, and the first time he saw a bass, he wanted the bass. And his father said, "Take up the saxophone; you'll always find work. I don't give this electric bass thing more than 2 years." But John Paul Jones knew what he wanted, right? And so he became. He learned how to play he said, I said, I improvise in all the hymns. he got 25 pounds a year when he was 14 years old to be the organ master at the church. That's some Capricorn shit, right? That's total Capricorn. And his chart is very different than Jimmy's chart. John Paul Jones has Mercury in Sagittarius, so how he thinks and processes is very different than Page, right? But Page's Sun and his Mercury are right on his Moon, right? So Sun, Mercury, Moon conjunction. These guys are the twin pillars. Led Zeppelin doesn't happen without them at all, right? And it's because of that they took this Capricornian path when they were young, and their paths cross in the studio world, where they come at it. They don't know each other when they're young. Like um, Jimmy Page is besties with Jeff Beck and stuff, but they don't really know each other. They eventually meet up inside the studio world. And John Paul Jones has this Mars Saturn conjunction in Cancer, and so his father plays a really big role. And at one point they play Royal Albert Hall, and his father is there, and he says it was kind of a big deal. All of his father's musician friends were like, "Hey," he's like, "Hey, what'd you think of my kid the other night, Royal Albert?" Huh? So I have him as a Cancer rising because he's very domestic, and the father plays a strong role. And he also has Mars here. He's got a very different chart than Page. Page is kind of single focus, right? That Sun Mercury conjunction. It's really about him and how he's going to move through the world and figure out how to do it. John Paul Jones his chart's a little closer to Trump's chart, actually. Am I right? It's kind of where's it, January? By the time March, May, June rolls around, right? Mars is going to be in Leo. Looks like there's a retrograde Mars cycle here, just like we're in now. Trump was born in 47 though. That's a year later. So he's a year younger. He's a year older than Trump. But, Uranus and Gemini, which we see, Neptune, Jupiter, right? Libra, same sort of deal. Yeah, fascinating, right? So, and again, with John Paul Jones, like just a lot of strictly business, and he stayed married to the same woman, unlike Robert Plant. Bonham, of course, dies, young. So he was with the same woman. Well, they all, I'm not sure when you read stories about John Paul Jones on the road, he's the one that's the least involved. Like he's the guy that like checks out early, right? Like he'll fuck around, and who knows what he does on the road or what he did. But he was not the guy throwing the TVs out the window. That was Bonham. Bonham, Plant, and Page on the road were fucking notorious for a lot of things. I don't think John Paul Jones is in that camp. And the other thing too is you could tell that he liked playing with Bonham, but I'm not sure he and Bonham were really tight, right? And I don't think Bonham and Page were really tight. Bonham and Plant were tight. Page and Plant had a very good relationship. But the band wasn't all like, buddy buddy. And I think for John Paul Jones, a lot of it was business. He enjoyed the music. It was very creative. It let him stretch out. But he was all business in a lot of ways. And I think for John Paul Jones, it comes down to this Uranus Pluto in conjunct with his sun, and trying to this yod and these forces that he's attempting to anchor chaos with Uranus and Pluto and Leo with temptation, right? And he doesn't have a lot of support here, except for these conjunctions, because everything else is in this T square. Bonham has a harder road in a lot of ways than Page does. Not hard in the professional sense, but internally it feels like John Paul Jones. John Paul Jones just feels internally more conflicted than Jimmy Page does. Jimmy Page doesn't have a lot of internal conflicts, but John Paul Jones does. And I think a lot of it has to do with his marriage and fidelity and being a part of this fucking, freight train known as Led Zeppelin. And at the same time, somehow maintaining his own sort of sense of composure and gravitas and keeping his world together. Right? I would have been very interested. Like, I'd love to have recordings of John Paul Jones conversations with his wife. Right? Like, that would have been very interesting to hear those conversations. Because I don't think he was a guy that wanted to fuck around. I think Venus, Sun, Moon, of course he's going to get tempted, right? Neptune, Jupiter, there's tons of temptation here. And even Pluto. But at the end of the day, he probably made a lot of business decisions, which is, I'll see you guys in the morning, I'll see you on the bus. We're headed to San Diego. And the other three are, just wrecking shop and causing mayhem. But this is an interesting chart, especially if you say, okay, well, this guy is, one of the most, the biggest musicians in the 20th century, clearly in the 1970s, most popular group, the greatest supergroup of all time. It probably wasn't always a very easy ride for him. When you look at this chart, fascinating. The other guys, I'm not going to really look at their charts. I just wanted to point out that the Capricornian side of this, with both John Paul Jones and Page, and they're getting to the session work 15, 16 years old. By the time they hit 20, 21, these guys are seasoned pros. They've been doing, 5, 6 sessions a day, recording everything from, country western to pretending like they're Dwayne Eddy to, playing with Shirley Bassey, like a huge, wide range and style of music, and being around the studio and understanding the studios and how they work and who the people are. Like, there's something about that when you venture out into creating a band, you're already, 3/4 what you need to know. The only other quarter is how it all fits together with the guys that you're starting a band with. So this is a story about Capricorn and how Capricorn and these two individuals, right, was really the driving force. They're the ones that kind of put this thing together. They're the ones that go find Robert Plant. Through Robert Plant, they get John Bonham, and they're and they're still around. All three of the four are still around, and Page looks pretty good, and John Paul Jones is pretty good. Robert's getting a little rough. He's looking a little rough, but the other two guys are maintaining. It's Capricorn. The Capricorns, right? They're like aging out well. So anyway, I highly recommend the movie. And when you see the movie, if you haven't already seen it, just pay attention to Page and John Paul Jones and that whole Capricornian story of them cutting their teeth, getting seasoned, and then kicking down the doors, because they're pros, they're veterans. They had massive head start versus people who are just picking up their instruments and sort of stumbling through the experience of being a musician. These guys were pros. They were pros, and they got the other parts of their band, and the rest is history. All right, that'll do it. I don't know what's happening with the Super Bowl, but I will find out. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I hope you enjoyed tonight's presentation. And if you're interested in a reading, you can get that with the link. If you want to buy me some cups of coffee for the work, you could do that too. You could go to Locals and become a member of Locals. And that's about it. We had a good night here. We got 300 people after 2 hours and 45 minutes. That's a pretty good retention rate. All right. Thank you, Chatara. You're the best. Work on your dreams tonight. Go back in the past, see if you can swap something out. Report back next week. All right. Take good care. Treat each other well. Love you all. God bless. Bye for now.